Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 591, maybe, of the Dead Robot Society. I'm Terry Mixon. Welcome, Paul E. Cooley, my co-host, who is looking at me like, what the fuck is he talking about?
You know, at some point, you're going to have to trust me in the production of the show, or you're going to have to, join and assist.
Are you sure that just mocking isn't enough?
No, mocking is not terribly helpful. No. It's like offering me exposure for writing. Yeah.
All righty then. Well, all right.
My notes say it's 591, so it's 591.
All right. Now, if one of these shows pops up with like a red marker through the one and another number next to it, you'll know what happened, folks.
Oh, I'm too lazy to do that. I'm much too lazy to do that. No way.
Welcome to episode 591, part 2.
Part whatever. Doesn't matter.
So, man, how has the last week been for you?
Productive and not productive. I'm still fighting to stay awake for an entire day to get all the work done. Fighting with sleep and everything else that's going on. This new mid regime sucks. But I got coding done and I got the final battle finished for Derelict. So now I'm writing the cleanup pieces to splice together a few things. So probably I've got 3 chapters to write there. So maybe 5,000 words, and then probably, I think 5 to 7 will cover the book, and then probably another 2,000 maybe for the epilogue. So that's the plan. We'll see how well that goes.
The end is in sight.
The end is in sight. And I created a whole nother goddamn mess in the process.
Well, that's the way it works.
Which,
we are writers.
People may demand a sequel to the series, and I'd be okay with that. We'll see. We'll see what those crazy people do.
I don't know if anything jumped around, but there's been a rampant cat running around on my desk just mere moments ago, just going nuts.
Your camera moved. Trust me. Your camera moved quite a bit. It's a kitty with the zoomies.
She says, I've got the zoomies, Rabud.
Mm-hmm. Right. So apart from that, not really much, except my voice sounds really good today. For once.
I'm sure that won't last.
It probably won't.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. I've been productive, but it hasn't all been in writing. I've gotten some writing done, but most of it was screwing around with websites and doing other ancillary tasks.
Websites. Mm-hmm. Do explain. Do elaborate, please.
I decided that I wanted my website to look like it was something modern instead of something from the year 2000. So I updated my theme and then had to, because I'm a WordPress idiot, how to figure out how to make things work and look okay.
And are you happy with the final result?
I am. I'm happy with the final result. I'm sure there can be some curly cues added to it, some prettier stuff done with it, but it is clean, functional, works everywhere, does what I want it to do, looks great. I'm happy with the basic look.
I can't wait to rip it off.
Rock on, man. If you want to see what this type of website can actually really look like, I went with the Author Pro theme from Studio Press? What is the name?
Something like that, yeah.
And you have access to that. But the website that I used as an example is JF Penn. Joanna Penn uses the same theme for that site, and she's got a lot more curly cues than I do.
A lot more curly cues. What does that mean?
It means that it's a lot fancier. She's done fancy things with this, whereas mine's fairly basic. She's done, the things to add a curly cue to it, to add something a little fancy to it.
All right, I gotcha. Meaning she actually hired people as opposed to learn how to do it herself.
I believe so, because she put out a half-hour video on how to basically configure it, which was useful. It helped me do a couple of things that I didn't know how to do. But she made clear in it that she was not somebody that was at all familiar with it. So I think somebody with some knowledge went along and did the things.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes sense. But did you get any actual writing done?
I got some done. The current book is at about 35%. So I probably got 5,000-6,000 words written during the last week. I could look and know for sure, but not an incredible amount, but some. What else was I doing? I was also doing, I had to do editing because I got the first editing pass back from the next Imperial Marines book, and I had to deal with that and deal with changing some covers and doing some other things. It's just lots of little non-writing stuff that I had to do to take care of. And that's really what prompted me for today's subject matter is, as writers, we do things that aren't writing all the time. If only writing was what we did, that would be great. But we've always got these other things that we have to do. And I want to talk about some of the other things we do as writers and maybe some of the other tools we use to make those things happen.
Okay.
For example, building a website. I don't know anything about WordPress, but I had to go ahead and I know just a little bit about it. So I had to go through and learn all the bits and pieces. It took me a week to get the website configured the way I wanted to, mainly because I did things the first time around that probably were not the best way to do them. So, yeah.
Your site, my site, the DRS site especially are so freaking old that probably half the content won't load properly in a new site. There's going to have to be massaging done here and there and whatnot. But I think the most important thing for an author at this point is to have a landing page with all that shit. At least the book's basic look and feel of what you're doing.
Have you looked at my website?
Unfortunately, yes.
No, okay. The new one is an unfortunate too? Oh, man. Talk about bringing me down.
You already heard my comments on the
I've actually changed something since you looked at it.
Oh, shit.
I decided that something I was doing was wrong and I changed it. So if you want to look along with us, folks, my website is terrymixon.com. It's not a very heavily populated site.
Okay, I got you.
But when I was doing it, what were we talking about? Something sparked this.
Landing page.
Landing page. That's it. Somebody mentioned that I needed to have my newsletter sign up on the front page and somewhere visible. So I had to attach it to the end of my about myself so that it was right there in the front page.
Oh,
and
that's pathetic.
I decided that I didn't want to have. I had a separate audiobook page, and I decided that was BS, and I just needed to add each individual audio piece to the individual book page for each one, and that took more time to correct.
Yes, that would take some time.
So yeah, but at least now that I've done it, I don't have to do it again.
Yeah, you should be good for another couple of years.
Should be. Take a moment and go look at jfpenn.com. 2 N's, Penn.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot of shit.
This is the same theme that we're using, that I'm using, that you're planning on using, but you can see that she's got a lot of things going on there that are a lot fancier than what I've done.
Right.
So there's plenty of room to grow and to expand with this theme to make it prettier. I just don't know how much enthusiasm I'm going to have for doing that. One of the big things that I needed to change with the website is if I want to use the Amazon Associates program for getting a little bit of change for referrals on that, it says in the rules that they have to come, the link that has to be from your site, not a redirect, but actually somebody clicking a button.
Correct.
So in my books, I point to my website for each book, and they have to click a button to go back to Amazon. And I added some language to that in the book saying this is what I'm doing. When I'm in my newsletter, I say the same thing. If you're going to click one of my books, you're going to go to my website and click the button to go to Amazon. It's the rules. Sorry about the inconvenience. We'll see if that makes any kind of a difference in it, but it's got to be done if I want to be legal by the rules. It would not at all surprise me if at some future point Amazon scans all the active books and goes, "Oh, look, you're not using the affiliates program right. You're chopped off the affiliates program."
Yeah, probably.
They just went through a month ago and looked for people that were using the same bank account for multiple publishing accounts and blocked them.
Really?
Kicked them off because it's a violation of the KDP terms.
Oh, I did not realize that was a violation of KDP's terms. That's bizarre.
Your account can have multiple pen names, but you can't have two accounts. And I'm assuming it's the same bank account because, no, Amazon doesn't tell people what it is. But like a husband and a wife that each published with separate accounts, both got themselves blocked, got themselves kicked off KDP for it. So that has to be a bank account, I'm thinking. Maybe there's something else. I don't know.
Yeah, another good reason for me not ever to go exclusive with Amazon again.
I believe that even if you're not exclusive, if you had two publishing accounts, that would still be sufficient to get you kicked off.
Probably, but they're more likely to check if you're KDP than they are not.
I'm suspecting this was some system thing that they ran because a bunch of people got hit all at once within like a week of each other.
I know that the same scam of some sort.
I don't know that anybody was running a scam. Some people just aren't aware of that particular rule, even though it says so when you're signing up for it. Back when, years ago, when I was signing up for this, my wife had created a separate account for the erotica, and we had to go ahead and unpublish stuff from it. Once it was like, oh, nope, this is not the way it's supposed to be. Unpublish, and then have them close down the account. So
interesting.
There are probably reasons why people would do this that may have absolutely nothing to do with trying to cheat the system.
Amazon, fuck you.
But in any case, tools that we have to learn how to do are websites. That's one of the things that an author needs is a website, preferably with your name.
And Terry, preferably with an HTTPS.
I don't want people logging into my site.
It has nothing to do with logging in. It has to do with the fact that almost every site needs to be HTTPS now, regardless of whether or not it's doing e-commerce. They're really clamping down on that, and you will get warnings all over the place.
Let me see if I am. I have no idea. Doesn't look like it.
Nope.
I wonder how you make it automatically go secure. There's got to be some setting that I am unaware of.
It might actually be with your hoster. You have to check with them and everything else, but you need to be SSL. So website folks out there and writers and whatnot, that's actually kind of a big deal. So make it happen.
Damn, more homework.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do?
I'm going to make a note right now. That's what I'm going to do right now. Because if I don't, I'll forget about it by the time we're done talking.
So yeah, learn the ins and outs there. Things have changed quite a bit. But there are a ton of plugins in WordPress. I'm not going to speak to the other ones, but I know that Drupal and whatnot have those too that are like, embedding audio or YouTube clips or, whatever you want to do, book excerpts and make them look cool. There's all sorts of things you can do on there to make your site actually meaningful for your series and everything else that you're doing. Some people go way overboard. I mean, if you wanted to, you could basically go into Archivos and design everything you want there and with all your goofiness and everything else, and then link to it directly from your site.
When I try to type in HH, put the S at the end of that, it tells me my connection is not private. It gives me a Chrome warning.
Correct. Because your certificate does not exist.
Damn it.
See,
screw them.
These are things when nerd to nerd conversations go on, but good thing for you to know. What else, Terry? What else is there?
Well, let's see. Whatever your website is that you pick to do it, look at other author websites and pick out the features that you like and find something that's, reasonably priced that does what you want. You can get a lot of free ones that may not have the features you need as an author. And one of the things you need as an author is the ability to have your books on your site. I picked the Author Pro theme because you can get a plugin with a library for it so that each of the books has its own entry, and I can control those separately, and I can manipulate how they're displayed. That was important to me. It was a feature that I had to have. And so when I did the search for various websites that served authors, that's what grabbed me to this. Yes, I paid $99 for it, but it's good for ever at this point.
Yeah, no
I think
limit.
that's a worthwhile investment.
No time limit, and you get updates.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a big deal. I know that I've been very lax, and DRS is a mess. It takes time to get all that done. The stuff that I'd rather be doing writing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's what I said this last week.
Yeah, exactly. Only I don't really have a week to lose at this point.
Yes, but it wouldn't have taken you a week to build the website that I built. It
Probably
would have taken
not.
you probably maybe a day and a half, 2 days.
I know that when we publish Trident, I have to go through and deck out the site for Derelict. I'm going to do it. The Derelict up in front and then put the black and the other series behind it, so to speak. But I want to make sure that the site is set up going, hey, the 4th book's out. Go get it.
I've got a widget area in the front on mine that I can have whatever books that I want there, up to, I think, 3 books displayed. And so that allows me to do that with new releases without screwing with the rest of the look of the site.
Right.
The only thing that I had to actually buy a plugin for is I could not change the font strength from being willowy thin to something normal. And I could buy the plugin for $35. That's good for a year and immediately change it and have it work. Or I could have spent a couple of hours of my time trying to figure out where I needed to change the CSS files. Guess what I decided to do? Spend the money. Paul could have figured it out. Me? It was easier to buy the plugin.
It's probably 2 lines of CSS code.
Yeah, but where would it be and how much would I blow up trying to find it?
Well, you go to the theme page and you go to source and then you choose the CSS that's appropriate and then you modify the font and it changes it all for the entire theme.
It's actually like he's speaking English where the words don't make sense. But yeah, sure. We'll accept that.
This is what happens when a developer talks to a noob. Anyway,
find authors that you like, look at their sites, see what you can see that you like, and make a list of the various things on their site that you would like to replicate on yours. Then you hunt for themes that might be able to do what you want.
Excuse me, if you've only got 1 or 2 books, you really just need a landing page and then have each book have its own page or description or whatnot. You don't really need much else.
That's what I started out with. And now that I'm at 20 books, allow me to assure you, changing it over to something that actually worked for that was a huge pain in my ass. So if you can start with something that will accommodate your growth, you should.
See, I already had series pages up for all my stuff, as well as the separate podcast links and whatnot. It all needs to be updated quite badly. And to be honest, I need to put a timeline together for which books go which order and, this, that, and the other.
One of the weird things about this theme is that it pays attention to when a book page was created. And that's on the series page, what order they're in. So it's always the newest ones at the top rather than them being in order. So I had to go play with the publication dates to get them to be in actual order.
Oh, no.
I did not like that.
There
was no setting to say use reverse order. which would have been useful.
Yeah, another line of code.
Now I looked online. Somebody said, "Yeah, you can modify this. You can modify this file with this bit of code here and fix this." Yeah, I'm not going to modify any code. That's not me.
You're not going to put some PHP in there to fix that?
I am not, because I am not that smart. I am going to blow up the site if I try.
Gee, in Python, you just take the list and say reverse.
See, now Paul is not going to have any trouble dealing with these problems when he does his site. That's why it took me 5 or 6 days, and it'll take him a day and a half.
Right.
But one of the things I like about the widgets in the front of this is that now that I have a separate entry for each book in the library, changing the books that are on the front page is a drop down. Oh, I'll just put this one in there. Boop, done. Change, done. Fast,
That's nice.
easy.
That's nice. If I was writing, 5 or 6 books a year, that would definitely be worth it.
That's why it's worth it to me, by golly.
Yeah.
I may not be writing 5 or 6, but I'm writing at least 4, so I'll take it. The other thing I went and did is I uploaded the audio sample files for my audiobooks to SoundCloud and then put them in on each book page so that people could hear a sample of the book if they so chose. That took time too.
Yeah, if I want that, I'll just upload the files to Libsyn and then have a player for them.
That's pretty much what I did. I used the SoundCloud player.
Yeah,
to go ahead and do it. Yeah, so it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah, I need to update my promos too. They're kind of out of.
I dumped my promos. Nobody ever asked me for them, so I just got rid of them.
That's kind of an issue now. Trying to get people to realize that Derelict is there, just like trying to get people to realize that the next Black book was there. That's become a huge pain in the ass because it used to be really easy. People would be like, "Hey, I need a promo to run this week," and you just throw a file at them. Now you kind of have to go scouting to see who is available and everything else. And now I don't know if you've been keeping up with the podcast business crap that's going on, but it's getting terribly insane.
In what way?
The ad revenue stuff is blowing up, as in Apple, Spotify, etc., even Netflix are talking about making their own premium podcast channels.
All right.
Where they would pay the podcasters for the content and get rid of ads. I found that very interesting. It's also very, very, very scary in some ways, but it seems like we got another kind of revolution coming on the horizon. And I know I've been asked before, why isn't your podcast on Spotify? And some of them are actually, and things like that. And people are looking for more outlets for that.
Something we're going to have to look forward to in the future. What are we going to do with the podcast to make sure that people can still find it when in the places they're looking for it?
Yeah, and that's the other issue is a lot of the places that we were all over the place with are dead, gone.
It's
no
like
longer
a ghost town out there, tumbleweeds blowing through the potosphere.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think Justin still has MySpace listed somewhere on this fucking thing. Regardless, it has to be updated big time for all that and changed around. But yeah, if you've got promos and things like that, those need to be front and center as well, so people can find them. If you're running a podcast, if you just want to share excerpts from audiobooks, that's a completely different animal.
So we've talked about websites, and we could talk about websites for the entire show, but I don't want to.
Let's not.
You mentioned something else just now that other writers get into that I'm not into, podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you go ahead and talk about what they would need to know, just in a broad overview, like we did with the websites.
Don't do it.
There you go, folks. Let's move on to the next subject.
Don't do it. What you need to start a podcast? You need a mic. These days, you probably want to have a camera if you're going to, you are going to want a camera if you're going to put it up on YouTube or you're dumb enough to start Twitch streaming. If you want information on that, talk to John Walker or somebody else in the community is doing it. For podcasts, really just a mic, sound program like Audacity, and hopefully a acoustically friendly area. And after that, it's just a matter of practicing getting in front of the mic and talking. Make sure you get your levels right. Make sure you reduce any background noise. Listen to your dumbass talk about nothing, or maybe read from something. Go listen to sound, have somebody else listen to the sound, and then go learn how to sound edit using Audacity, GarageBand, Reaper, whatever. And for typical podcasting where you're not doing the fiction crap like I am, you're not going to have whiz-bang sound effects, you're just going to babble, you don't really need much. You don't really know how to do, you don't really need to know how to do much either. Just a matter of learning how to remove the oops and ahs and bleeps and, ums and so's and Terry talking. Just kind of whack that
Cat
stuff out there.
all over the microphone.
Yeah. And there's about 1,000 podcast sites, there's about 1,000 different podcast things at cons. I know I've been on the beginning podcasting con at Balticon for every single year that I've gone. So there's plenty of resources out there for you to learn how to do it. If you're going to do the fiction recording, that is a different can of worms. And that means practicing a lot of narration. That means also getting your sound very clean and learning how to not be a boring narrator, which can be trying. Yeah, expert podcasting for dummies.
Is this still relevant? I don't even know how old it is.
No, probably not. It says DVD, so I'm thinking no. I'm thinking it's no longer relevant.
It may be, it may not be. Let's see. How long ago was this done? It was done. Come on, copyright. Here's where I need those glasses so I can see anything. 2008.
Yeah.
It may be a little out of date.
Just a little out of date. It's probably still got Podbean on there or something. I don't know if T has updated that book recently, but I'm sure there's something out there. It's been written the last 2 years. It's probably a bit more concrete. But essentially, whatever T said in there, apart from the specifics and the programs may have changed, the process hasn't. It's the same process over and over and over again. Find a place like Libsyn or Cloudflare or whatever to host your RSS feed that talks to your website if that's the way you want to do it. You upload your posts and you're done. That's it. But everything costs money. Not a whole lot, but it costs money. So there are thousands of articles out there on what gear you want, what gear you want to need or want to have. If you're starting out, go cheap. Don't be a dumbass. Go cheap until you figure out that it's something you actually want to do and enjoy doing.
What qualifies dollar range as cheap?
$100.
I think I probably spent a little bit more than that for this blue snowball, but it's lasted me 15 years or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, and that's a really good microphone. For most people, if you're starting out and you have a webcam, I would just use the webcam microphone. You're going to sound like shit, but the thing is, you get an idea of just how bad you're going to sound. And trust me, you're going to sound awful. But there are mics out there that will do a pretty damn decent job from $60 up. And there are some webcam mics that are actually pretty good. But for doing fiction podcasting, you don't want that. You want something a little more pro, like a Blue or whatever. Don't be Jake Bible.
Intimate and speak into your microphone like this.
Don't be Jake Bible and record on an old Apple IIc microphone with a pair of, pantyhose stretched across it as a fucking
pop filter.
As a pop filter. Yeah, don't be that person. Just do not be that person. You can do better than that.
If you need a pop filter, I've got one here for you.
That is the best story of all time about that era of podcasting is Jake actually recording through that horrible thing and it not sounding completely awful. That's the scary part.
Yes, but back in the days of the old Wild West of podcasting, you didn't have to deal with high quality on anything.
No,
so it's not like oh, this sounds terrible. No, they all sound terrible.
Everybody was using 64-bit. I mean, it was about as low as you could get. You could go to 32, but why? You sound like everybody sound like they're speaking underwater or something. But yeah, I mean, I do 96 now, and nobody complains. At 96 kbps, you can actually have music not sound horrible. At 64, not so much. 64, music starts getting really iffy. Voice is still okay, but it's definitely a difference between listening to FM and AM.
Just go 128. Just do it. Just go 128.
I went 256 for the straight audiobook. Holy fucking shit. It was like 1.2 gigs or something like that of data. And that was a small audiobook. So yeah, I ratcheted it back down to 96.
Well, the one thing, if you do it at that higher level, you can make an MP3 and lose some of that, but it still sounds better than if you did it at the lower bit rate.
Yeah, always record the highest bit rate you can get away with, because you can compress it to anything.
Exactly so.
But if you don't have the data to begin with, you're boned. So
start with as high a resolution as you can do, and then make the file smaller. That is much better than recording it shitty to begin with.
Yeah, it's just like I have a 2 kilobyte GIF that looks fantastic at postage size, but now blow it up 1120 by 1200. No, you're going to be able to fire artillery shells between the pixels. It's the same kind of thing. Start out with the largest image you can get, and then compress as necessary. So that would be another thing. Don't be cheap as far as recording on the quality side, and also make sure you have plenty of drive space available, especially if you're dumb enough to do video. Oh my God.
Yeah, like my first webcam, Paul would tell you, he went ahead and the DRS Society bought me a new webcam because my first one was crap.
It was so garbage. You constantly look, even when your internet didn't suck, you look like you had Vaseline over your camera.
Well, you were right. This one certainly works a lot better than what I had.
Yeah.
But that takes us to another site, because there's something about it that I want to talk about, and that's Patreon, or whatever site that you can use to support the Uber fans of your work.
I need a coffee.
Or I need a coffee, which, by the way, we really should, have something like that for.
It's on my list.
I know, but I had to keep mentioning it because one of the potential patrons mentioned it to me again. So I just thought I'd mention it again. Since they poked me, I poked you. There we go.
File storage is the only issue.
File storage? All right. That took a turn that I wasn't quite expecting. I don't know what file storage had to do with what we were talking about. Maybe
posting Patreon exclusive episodes.
Okay, so for the show, I see what you're saying, but they can at least be part of the live streams.
Yes.
And I suspect that's all they were really looking at, not to necessarily, I don't know. The other can be figured out. We can, have, even if we're just putting it out on YouTube and not making the address public, not making it so that they can find it, is still a way to share it. So there's ways that can be dealt with that. And I'm not concerned about it. We can make
I've looked at there's so many things out there. Like Substacks is the new one that's out, which you can actually do. I think it's actually meant for more essays, written stuff, if you want to do that as opposed to recording, but it will do things like podcasts. Jean Miro checked out something new that we were looking at as well that was all open source. It would not work for me very easily, but it might work for some other folks. I have to find that damn thing again.
It's something to look at, but where I was going with this with Patreon was my updates to them are just text at this point, but they allow for audio, they allow for video, and I've been thinking about doing video updates for my patrons as opposed to just writing out the text, because anybody that's coming to Patreon, they're coming because they just love you, and you should give them more. You should always try to give them more, and upping your game to doing a video message to them is probably a good thing to do.
They're happy just getting updates in general. What I've done, I try and do this once or twice a month, is I make a public post. It's not even for Patreon only. It includes, it's usually something scientific or story related that I'll share in general. And then basically it becomes a blog post. The patrons get it, but so do people who find you on Patreon. And they might find what you said interesting and then give you $1 for that month. There's a mix. There's stuff, there's inside information that I'll only reveal to the patrons, and then there's outside information I try and reveal to everybody. So it just depends on where you are and things. There's some stuff the patrons know that the average reader does not. And as long as we can keep playing that game and I have exclusive content for them, then they're happy. They're happy to keep supporting, and especially if they want to see the next story or know I'm having problems making it because I'm not getting advances or whatnot, then, they'll up it. People up to get Trident. Since I was giving it up at the $5 level, because there's now going to be an ebook, which is changed now. But I gave the audiobook, and a whole bunch of people jumped up to the $5 level to get the audiobook. And
they allow annual membership now.
So. And they allow annual memberships. In fact, Buy Me a Coffee has that too now.
I finally switched up to doing the annual and had one of my patrons jump right away into doing the yearly. I was shocked. I didn't expect anybody to.
I have a couple that probably will. It's something that's I've been struggling with, because you're like, oh fuck, I have to promise to give you content for a goddamn year.
How long have you been giving them content?
Patrons or in general?
The patrons, they're on Patreon.
Since I started.
So I think you can be pretty confident that you're going to continue to do so. You've got a track record. When I'm posting, the stuff that I give my patrons is the beta chapters, the chapters of the work that I'm working on. Right. And I've done 6, 7 books through that. I admittedly, as soon as the book is published, I take the books back down again. I take the old stuff back down, but the patrons got to saw it. They got to see it. So
if they wanted to.
This is true. If they wanted to, I'm maybe there's some patrons that support me without looking at it. I have no idea.
You know what? Those of us who support a lot of folks are kind of like, yeah, exclusive content. I don't have time to listen to that. Velvet Antichrist is one of my favorite bands. I badgered him until Brian got himself on Patreon. And now it's like he puts out all this remastered stuff and everything else and new songs. And it's like, yeah, great. I'll go listen to that. And then I forget about it. I've got like this massive collection of tracks I've never heard. I've got stories I've never read by Phil Rossi and Seth Harwood and all these folks. And I don't have any fucking.
I follow another author, and he does the same sort of thing with putting out his chapters. I have not read any of his preview chapters in like a long, long time.
It's funny. It really is funny how it works, though. And Mark Kilfoyle of The Weird Show was talking about this the other night, about the fact that he's fallen behind on his podcast. They just keep downloading and keeps getting the warning, you haven't listened to this in so many months, but I'm going to. Don't delete it. Pretty soon you have like a 20 gigabyte backlog.
Yeah. At some point, you are never going to. It's like the stack of magazines that I've got next to my bed on my nightstand.
Oh, God.
Why? I'm going to read them eventually.
Yeah, right. No, you're not. Give it up. It's cat box lining. Give it up. Just give it the fuck up.
But there are things that I could do with Patreon that I'm not, and that's something that I'm going to have to be upping my game with as well. I'm going to add, I don't know, maybe I'm going to add in something where I'm recording video messages for the folks. Maybe I'll do an exclusive reading for them, why they would want to listen to me read. God only knows, but, I might try that.
Live shows are always good. When people show up.
How do you do we do the live show in Patreon. I've never done it as a creator. I have to talk with you how that actually happens.
It's like this.
Oh my God, it's like a revelation.
You just basically use StreamYard or Squadcast, something along those lines, to stream and add the different areas you want. Like right now, we're streaming to YouTube, so who's recording it, which is why we stream to YouTube regardless.
Let me reiterate: I'm a tech-tard, so it would probably blow up on me. I'd have to go ahead and make some alleged learning exercise to go make this happen. I'd have to get some skills.
StreamYard took me about 5 minutes to figure out. Squadcast, I think, is really easy to use too. I chose this one because it could do this, which Squadcast could not do at the very beginning. It's not a problem. You have to have, if you're going to stream to YouTube and have them record it, you obviously have to have a YouTube account. You have to have a StreamYard account, hook them up, and then you're pretty much good to go. You just create a broadcast, keep it private, and play with it.
So, folks, this is the clue. Technology continues to advance, and if you live in, you learned your tech in the 80s, you may have to go ahead and learn some more things to make this work.
If you learned your tech in the 80s, you didn't learn tech. You learned pre-tech. And I can say that as a child of the 80s. Thank you very much.
I was an adult
2600 does not translate well to, quantum computing.
When I was going to high school, they had, I guess it was Apple IIs in the computer labs, but I wasn't allowed anywhere near the computer labs because I was not a tech guy. And so when I was in the 80s and in the Army, I bought my first PC, basically. It was a Commodore VIC-20 with a tape drive.
Oh, those were the days.
Those were the days.
You
can see where, technology-wise, I'm a bit dated.
Well, we just look at your haircut and we know you're a bit dated.
It's totally true. Could I know more about it? I absolutely could, but I've never devoted the time that I needed to learn what I needed to do. So
there are a lot of things out there that make it pretty easy for a tech-tard to do things now, as opposed to back in the battle days.
YouTube can teach you how to do things.
Whereas back in the battle days, we had a hand coder HTML. Thank you very much.
Things have changed in the last 10 years. In the last 5 years, things have radically changed. And considering how much innovation there's been during this pandemic, I would not be at all surprised to see things have like a global revolution in how things are done in the next couple of years.
I think we're already there. It's just America's going to be fighting its internet capacity battle, which is finally coming to a head, or going to
Starlink, baby!
I'm telling you. Regardless, there's a lot of stuff you want to do podcasts with Patreon. You can do damn near anything you want. You can post audio files up there, links to YouTube, or used if you're paying their ridiculous Zonkers package. They include video streaming in there. So there's a lot of different things you can do with it. I think it's a good, if you have a fan base you're trying to grow and you do have some things to put out or things like that, that you can share that are exclusive, then Patreon's a good way to, at least get an audience.
And one of the things that I use Patreon for is a driver for me to produce content. It's necessary for me because I can get sidetracked in other things. If I've got people waiting on content, it's a little harder to put something off.
So you say.
It worked for me the last few years.
Excuse me. Huh? Oh, God. Pardon me. Sneezing on camera. Getting snot.
So, next tool, we're going to go back over to you. I use Word, which is an easy tool to write with.
Oh, God.
You use Scrivener, correct?
Correct.
Obviously, you get a lot more out of Scrivener. I own Scrivener. I own version 3 on the Mac, and I own a version for Windows, and I'll upgrade it to version 3 when they come out with the Windows version. But as a linear writer, I don't know that it does me any good. But you obviously get something out of it.
If you have multiple storylines, multiple characters, and you have a tendency to write out of order, Scrivener is godlike because it allows you to shuffle around chapters, move things around very easily, reformat an entire book just by dragging and clicking a few things to shuffle, chapters around, which is why, like for Destruction and Trident Shipyards, I wrote the Callie Dickerson Mira portions all separate from the rest of the book, and they were in their own folder. And then when it was time to put the book together, I grabbed what was in those folders and spliced them together in between the other chapters, so it made sense chronologically. But I had a lot of problems trying to write that book piecemeal. I had to focus on one storyline, get that storyline completely done in order to dovetail it with the other stuff that was going on. So I had to figure out one thing first.
The first few books that I wrote, fairly large chunks of them were written during downtime at work on a Unix machine using the VI text editor.
Mm-hmm.
And it did not impinge me at all. It didn't bother me one little bit because it's like writing on a page. I see. I've written books on my phone as well. The thing is with me, it's the equivalent of writing your story in a notebook, because I start at the first page and I work page to page to page to page to page, and so my needs as a writer are not the same as your needs as a writer. You write out of order. Trying to do it with a notebook would be a spiral notebook would just kill you.
Yes,
it would utterly kill you.
And it did for years, which is why when I finally got the chance, I wrote a Ruby script to actually go through and use, in fact, Closet Truths was the first one I used that on, to basically take chapters written in TXT file with Emacs and convert the whole shoot and match into an ebook. And so I had an ordering sequence down and everything else, and it just shit out an ebook at the end of it. It was pretty cool.
You see, I could have learned to work with Emacs, but my mentor at work was a VI guy and taught me on VI, so I was stuck. And my other coworkers were like, you should use this. It's got so many more features. I don't care. I want the command line. Give me the command line.
And that's what I use with Emacs. I use the command line Emacs. I don't use the X Emacs. I use the honest to God real thing. But I use both. I use Vi for a lot of stuff. I use Vi for more things than I care to admit. I do use it for scripting because it's very powerful. Quick. Yeah, it's
very quick and very powerful.
Extremely. But regardless what you write on, Scrivener does give a little bit easier of a time as far as organizing research, making sure everything's in the same project, so you don't have to go to 15 different folders to find what you're looking for. Everything is kind of embedded in their doc. They have Dropbox integration, so you have a way to make sure that your drafts are saved. And there's even versioning. There's all sorts of crazy shit. And of course, it can crap out an ebook or PDF or Word file or whatever you want.
I wrote a little bit in Scrivener when I was going to Vegas because I took along my iPad and I was writing on that. And it was easier to use that than try to use Word. But now Word, I have the 365 subscription to it, and I can use it on my devices as well. So I could have done that now. And it's all personal taste. Whatever it takes for you to get your words down, that's what's right for you. If you need more than Word or a text editor can give you, then by all means, you should look for more. If you don't, maybe you shouldn't.
And
don't get lost in the weeds.
There's 1,000 different really cool text editors out there that will cost you almost nothing, that have features that will run, and these things run on all three platforms, Linux, Mac, and Windows. So there's a lot of opportunities to look past whatever it is you're using. Chances are OpenOffice or whatever will do exactly what you need it to do if you don't want to spend money on Word. But like I said, there's 1,000 different ones out there. You just need to find the one that works for you.
For me, just to be clear, it doesn't have to be hideously expensive. I pay $99 a year for 5 seats for the family. And it fills everything that we need to do for Office, for Word, for Excel, for everything that we do. And that's a pittance, really.
Comparatively speaking.
So it's something that I'm more than willing to spend as a writer because it's what I'm comfortable with and I don't have to learn something else and it does what I need to do.
Yeah, which is the important bit. Don't listen to us snobs. I'm snobby for a reason. I've been using word processors since 1983, and I have a very healthy loathing for Word for so many goddamn reasons. I was a WordPerfect dude. I was putting in the hand codes to make WordPerfect work back in 82, 83 for crying out loud.
See, the key there is, though, even though I use Word, I use virtually none of the features of Word.
Yeah, you don't need a pivot table.
I could use Notepad, and it would be pretty much the same for me.
Look, man, the majority of people out there don't use like 70 to 80% of the features that are available in those software packages.
I figure I use maybe 1%.
I probably use maybe 10 to 20% of what Scrivener's got. It's just ridiculous. They were asking me in the survey about which features I used, and they named some stuff I didn't even know existed. It's like, what the hell is that? Someone looked it up and was like, whoa, it can do that. I don't need that, but that's cool. So
Scrivener is the bells and whistles. It really is.
It's wunderbar.
It's got everything. If you want to do it, it can probably do it.
But again, it just depends on what you're doing. If I was doing technical documentation, Scrivener would actually be amazing for that. It's amazing for putting books together with lots of characters, lots of plot lines, thriller, suspense, space opera. It's really good for putting that stuff together and makes my life a hell of a lot easier. And of course, you have different views you can see everything in, and sometimes I'll split views and have one chapter in one area and another chapter that I'm working on so I can look back and forth rather than having to switch pages back and forth. It's simple stuff like that you really get dependent on because it improves your life.
That's a good place to split to another topic, and that's what I use to create and maintain my story Bible, which if you're a writer and you don't have a story Bible, you're in deep, deep trouble because trust me, I've been there. And now I have to play catch up, and it's not fun playing catch up. If I was starting out without what I'm currently using, I would jump on Archivos in a heartbeat. I have a membership courtesy of Dave Robeson that I don't use. And it makes me sad because it's got so many features that I really wish that I could use, but I've already got dozens of novels invested into using OneNote.
Right.
And the reason that I used OneNote is because it's shareable. It's something that I can have the basic functionality of having different tabs for different worlds or different universes that I'm dealing with. And I can have all the information that I need there. It allows me on my computer to search for the things that I need. And trust me, when you're like going, I'm coming back to this ship that I haven't visited in 3 books. I wonder who the hell works there. I kind of need to know that information because otherwise you'll suddenly discover you have a brand new crew. Where did these people come from?
From Terry's brain, that's where.
Have you ever renamed people?
Not to my knowledge. That doesn't mean to say I haven't done it.
I was going through, in the book that I'm writing now, I was going back to a ship and the complement that I hadn't visited in 4 books. And so I was starting to use names of characters. I was like, let me double check and make sure. And I searched around like, oh, wait, I've got these other characters that are actually there. I should use them instead. So that I don't change the names of the chief helmsman, of the chief engineer, of the chief medical officer. That's kind of useful.
It is. When Derelict is done, I will go finish out the Archivos building for that series. And when the Black is completely finished, I'll go back and do that as well.
I really need a super fan to take and go through my books and add and edit things because trust me, I found someone that I could pay to cut little bits and pieces out of books as they're going along and put into these. But sometimes it doesn't read like a Wikipedia entry. I really wish it did, but it doesn't.
Yeah, Archivos reads more like a Wikipedia entry.
That would have been so much better. If you have not built one, use Archivos. Don't be like Terry. Get one. Get one. Do it.
Yeah, go check out Archivos. It's pretty amazing, especially if you're starting out with a series or you've done the first book and now you're like, oh shit, I need to remember everything I did that to write the second book. Yeah, take the time to put the research in there and you'll be much better off.
God, I would dread to think about how much time it would take me to go back through each of the things that I've written to bring my story Bible up to spec.
Oh yeah, Scott Sigler's.
Especially if I was going to go ahead and put it on Archivos.
John Viscara, I think, is Scott Sigler's historic living Siglerpedia Bible. I think he handles pretty much all of that. He's the, I don't know if he has an eidetic memory or what, but he is the king of continuity. It's always nice to have somebody like that in your fan base. I don't have somebody like that I know of, but yeah, it'd be pretty cool.
Wouldn't it be great to have somebody like that?
Oh yeah. Don't you remember on page 221 of the Black, you wrote this sentence? Don't you want to use that in another book?
I have found.
What are you talking about?
There have been times where I found that I've changed the name of a ship. I've changed the name of a planet. I've inadvertently reused a character that I killed off somewhere else.
I've killed Red twice. Like yeah, killed Red twice. There are always things like that you kind of miss. And then your beta readers miss it, and then it gets published.
And then 3 years later, somebody says, oh, hey.
Or 2 minutes after you publish the book, you killed this guy twice, right? Oh, fuck.
Quick edit, republish.
Oh, God. Yeah, even with all these tools, even with all these things there that make our lives easier. Excuse me. Some things never change, which is typos. Typos are always going to be there. Continuity errors are always going to be there. No tool is going to fix those. That takes patience. That takes attention from the writer and some discipline. If I go back and write something out of order, I'm going to put something in place saying, hey, dummy, this is where this should go. And not just like mamby-pamby mix things around. And after I put all that together, I have to read it to make sure it makes sense in the continuity. So you can't just slap stuff together and hope it's going to work, because it's not the way you do it. You were saying?
I was going to say that one of the tools I use to help with the typos and other issues is I have a yearly subscription to Grammarly Pro. I don't use all of the recommendations. I would say I use probably less than half the recommendations, but I look at them and go say, one of the problems is that I get my first draft done by Dragon. It tends to sometimes use the wrong word that sounds the same, or it may not put a word in, or it may put an extra word in. And I might catch that. I might not catch that. But Grammarly is a good way for me to figure out if the program says, there's something wrong here, then I need to take a look and say, is there really something wrong there? If there is, I can fix that.
So that's your sanity check.
It's one of them. I want to make sure when I publish my books, I will write the book. I will go through it a couple of times, reading through it, changing it, and catching as many of the flaws and errors as I can. I'll use Grammarly to help get it as clean as I can, because when I send it off to the editor, I'm sending it off for proofreads.
Right.
I'm not sending it off for anything deeper than that. So it's anything to make the proofreader's life a little easier and give me that little extra feeling of security of knowing I've done everything I can to catch as many of the errors as I can. It's worthwhile to me.
That's all part of the process. That's all part of defining your process, what it is, and then following it. And that's going to be different pretty much for everybody. And that's, I mean, Terry and I have said that forever. I don't think there's ever been a host of this show that had a different opinion. The process is what you come up with that works for you.
And we keep changing our processes and trying to find something that works better, even when we're going to things that work worse than what we did before. That's
Like
me.
Right now, I'm cycling. I am doing cycling like Terry was talking about. And I realized I have been doing cycling for a long time because every morning I wake up, I go look at what I wrote last night and correct a few things, and that gets me back into the story of where I was. That's really helping me now. I didn't used to do that, or if I did it, I wasn't really aware that I was doing it. But I think I was doing it. But it does help you clean up some of that stupid shit, because you come across, after a night's sleep, you look at that sentence, go, what in God's name was I on last night? How did that even make sense at the time? And either cut it or rewrite it. So yeah, the process is an evolution. Therefore, so are the tools. Therefore, so is everything that you do. It's always going to be an evolution. And yet to this day, I guarantee you, there are some very popular writers out there that use typewriters to this day still. Guarantee it.
You'll probably find some that use manual typewriters.
You probably find a couple, not many, but a couple.
Not many these days, but there's probably still a few.
I'm sure there are. Those people haven't moved on, but yeah, there's still some people out there who probably faxing their manuscripts to their editors.
God,
there's probably an editor out there who still has a
how
fax
long
machine.
would it take to fax a novel? Holy cow.
Back in the olden days, holy crap, like an entire day. 250 or 300 page novel. Yeah.
All you young folks, faxing, it used to be a thing.
It used to be a horrible thing. Oh God, remember the thermal paper faxes? Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God. Fuck.
We're going down memory lane here now.
Thermal printers. Oh my God. Yeah, brain death.
Some people print out their stuff and go through it and actually redline it. I've done that on occasion. I've stopped doing it, but I've gone back and forth to doing it. I've listened to my stuff in audio and corrected things.
That's usually my last pass, is the recording the audiobook. It's supposed to be my last pass.
The computerized voices have gotten good enough to where I can actually listen to it read for me and in Word, and it's not bad. It's dealable if you pick the right voice. Yeah,
I know authors that do that. They will sit on the floor with their eyes closed and listen to the computer read it back. And then they know when to fix stuff or when things go off the rails, or to check and make sure that the narrator voice hasn't screwed up that word that you did. So it's a good, I imagine it's a really good sanity check. There are, of course, some things you say.
How much time do I want to spend on this project versus how many checks and balances am I willing to put into way?
Editing audio, a finished hour of audio takes 5 hours roughly, depending on what it is.
Well, I'm just saying that if I was having Word read back one of the drafts to me, that's not as fast as me reading it. Am I really willing to spend twice as much time on that pass through as I was? Do I want to trade that time for however many errors I think it's going to find?
Right. And that was kind of my point. Is it, if you get the process down, then it's not as much work at the end. But if I record a 35-hour audiobook, I guarantee you I'm not going to listen to that whole goddamn thing again before I hit publish. I will hand that off to a minion and have them do it, and find all the oops and ops and X and other things I fucked up. And then depending on how bad or depending on how egregious they are, I may fix them. I may not. This word sounded a little mushy. Good. Next.
By the time you get past the halfway point in the book, you're like, yeah, fuck it. Fuck it.
Yeah, pretty much. That's my narration anxiety. I have to convince myself, fuck it, people are going to deal with it, and you just need to do the best you can. That's usually good enough.
People complain surprisingly little about the amount of typos that I might have. I imagine I don't have a ton of them, but sometimes people will report them through Amazon, and I'll fix them as soon as I see a notice that there's something there, if there is indeed something there.
Yeah,
and it still happens. It still happens.
Sure,
But
it's always going to happen.
It'll be like a book that I published 3 years ago that however many people have read, and then somebody go, "Oh, you got a typo here." Nobody's thought to mention this in the last 3 years?
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, you spend, I don't know, 50 to 100 hours working on a book, probably a lot more than that, really. And that's just writing the first draft. And then if you have to go back through the whole book again and edit it, then you're guaranteed an investment of probably 20 to 30 hours, depending on how messy it is. So I can see it, when you start figuring out just how long it takes to, write and get a book ready, there's still a whole bunch of shit to do after you finish that first draft.
You should wait for publishing day. Holy cow. It's like a day for me to do stuff.
Oh, God. Publishing days are fucking awful. So many things to double check, triple check, quadruple check, and still fuck up.
Exactly so.
You'll write up the checklist and you'll forget step number 3. I write up checklists for other people so they can figure out how to develop stuff, and they always skip number 3 or number 7. Always. I don't know why it is, but they always skip step 3 or step 7. I always skip step 3 or step 7 of my own goddamn checklist, so I shouldn't be shocked by this. But yeah, get that down. The first time you go through it, you're probably going to fuck up everything you touch. And while you're fucking up everything you touch, keep a notebook saying, "Don't do this, don't do that." And when you finally figure out how to do it, write it down.
I actually have a publication checklist that I haven't used in the last 2 books that I probably should go back to using. It actually has the squares where you physically print it out and you check mark it.
I'm pretty sure you shared that. Oh God, with everybody at one point. Excuse me.
I did. I'm sure there was a version of it. I'm sure I've trimmed it around and messed with it. It is just, I'm glad that Vellum is here, really. It makes my life easier.
Yeah, Vellum is the other thing, which is a really good piece of software for putting together audiobooks and print books. Or excuse me, ebooks and print books. I was going
to say, you could do audiobooks in Vellum? This is news to me.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. Anyway, Vellum is definitely worth your time and to look at if you're going to be doing ebooks, because it makes it really easy to manage everything. It's just wonderful.
It's a Mac-only product.
It is a Mac-only product. The other thing I use Audiobook Builder, which is like $15, $30 piece of software from somebody. I don't remember who it is, but it does pretty much everything you need to do. You drag the chapters in there in high quality, and it goes, "Oh, let me ship this out into M4B files," which is what iTunes uses for audiobooks, and everything else uses for audiobooks. Rather than having to go back and change the MP3 to M4Bs and have the whole mess, it'll just chop it up. You tell it how many. I've got the files set to a maximum of 200 megabytes before it switches over and creates a new file. So you may end up with 3 or 4 M4Bs. But then when you use something like a music player, it knows, hey, these all belong to this book. I know all the chapters. I've got all the markers. I can go do my thing. So that is another really, really good thing to check out. I don't remember if it's Mac only or not, but I'm sure if it is, there's a Windows product that does exactly the same thing.
I don't use the Mac for anything other than building the ebooks, but it was worthwhile buying a Mac Mini and just using it for that. I got my money's worth for how much time I saved in building books and dealing with them and the quality of the books.
It is a long way away from back in the bad old days. So
when you used Calibre to go ahead and build your Mobi files for upload?
You're talking to the guy who wrote MyWrite, for crying out loud. I could tear apart an EPUB and put it together and slap autographs inside of it and repackage it and have you download it. Yeah. I could hand code an ebook, an EPUB file if I wanted to. And in fact, I kind of did.
Changed.
Kind of did with Ruby. So yeah, times have changed quite a bit. Personally, I'd rather, as a writer, spend more time actually fucking writing than spending, time messing around with archaic ways of doing things. I just want a fucking tool to do the goddamn job and get out of my way.
Anything that you can throw a little bit of money at that will take something that's a time sink away from you is worth the money.
Agreed. Oh
I once heard another writer say he valued his work hours, his time at doing anything, at $50 an hour. He said,
am I in the hole?
Well, I'm just saying that, if you look at it from that point of view, I don't know that I value my time at $50 an hour, but if you look at it in that way, you say, it's going to take me a couple hours to do this, and it'll cost me this amount of money, then you suddenly don't feel so bad about throwing money at it.
Right. If you got time, you ain't got the money. If you got the money, you ain't got the time. That's how it works.
And with tools, when you throw it at it once, you save that over the next however long. Next book, you don't have to worry about it.
Right. Like purchasing Scrivener. I purchase it pretty much every year, and I'm happy to do so because they keep updating the product. They keep it pretty bug free, and it does what it wants to do. It does what it needs to do, and I'm happy with it. I'm more than happy to give them money for that. Same thing with Audiobook Builder. I've been using that forever, and they just keep making it better. And I don't even think about it until it's like, oh, version 3 is out. Your key no longer works. Oh, shit. I guess I better go update my key. And I got to figure out how to use this fucking thing again. Oh, wait, they just added bells and whistles and it still works the same way. Yay! Would you like to ignore the bells and whistles? Yeah, get that shit out of my face. I don't need that crap. I know what I'm doing. It's all part of the process of getting the book to the final stage where you can publish it. And the tools, there are so many fucking, just a mess of tools out there. And you don't need all of them. You probably don't need most of them. But there are a few that will definitely make your life easier, like Eon Timeline or something like that. If you're writing something that's historical, that has to have events, or you want to plot out when this happened in your book and maybe some history, or you got history for the world and lore, you need the timeline. All this stuff is out there that software will do it. Archivos will do 90% of that right out of the box. So if you need that, those tools are there. You don't have to go invent something. You don't have to buy something really expensive. Those tools are there and they exist.
I haven't gone to look and see what new features Archivos has since the last time I looked. I'm sure it's got more because Dave continually has developers working on various things.
Yeah, it's become quite an interesting platform. If you're interested in what it is, you can go up there and they've got, I think, the Archivos site for the entire Tolkien trilogy, The Lord of the Rings, with timelines and everything. Jenny and James Melzer went through there and created a sample Archivos site for Tolkien, and it's unbelievably verbose and intense. It's ridiculous. So it can be done. You don't have to do it that far, but they can be done, and those things will definitely help you if you're writing something monstrous. There you go. I think we're done.
I think we could go on for hours on the various tools, so I think we better be done.
Yeah, something like that. Now, if I can just find the page I'm looking for, you can take us out.
I will take us out, but I don't want to, get ahead of you there, because goodness only knows you'll be sitting there waiting. Folks, if you know of a tool that we should know about that we didn't talk about, send us a note at show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can find Paul on Twitter at Paul_E_Cooley. You can find me on Facebook, where I host the Listeners of the Dead Robot Society podcast Facebook group, where everybody comes and talks about what we're doing here and passes along the various book-related things that they enjoy. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast. We have to thank the good folks at podhoster.com for hosting the audio for us. And of course, we have to thank Patreon. We don't have to thank them because, they take their share anyway. We use Patreon, where the patrons can support us for as little as $1 a month, getting exclusive content. And one of those rewards for supporting us at the $10 level is having your name read in every show.
And our $10 patrons are Andrew Smallwood, Chris Moody, Chris Winder, Isabel Cushy, Jacob Patrick, Rick Shaw, Summer Wilson, Tony Eljoy, and Veronica Jiquer. Thank you very much to our $10 patrons, and thank you very much to all of our patrons.
Thank you so much, folks. You're what keeps us doing this.
Yeah, that's what we tell them.
That's what we tell them.
That's what we tell them. It's really a pyramid scheme with cats.
Ooh, it's a pyramid cat scheme. I like it. I like it a lot. And with that thought, we will go ahead and say goodbye for now, folks, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're out. Good enough.
That was fun.